I'm Superman.
Not every Superman is created equal. Across comics, shows, movies, and video games, he's been reimagined, rewritten, and in some cases completely unrecognizable. So now that we had a little bit of time with the new Superman movie, it's time to break down the best and worst versions of the Man of Steel across every medium. Let's find out who truly embodies Superman and who never should have worn the cape. Like the video, subscribe, and let's get to it. Starting with the straight up worst and the edgiest of them all, Superman at Earth's End. This is the Superman you can't leave around your mom or girlfriend. He's like that one Allstate commercial.
I'm the guy sitting next to your girl on the kiss cam. Sheila? Mom?
You know, I'm pretty sure that's what these writers were thinking, and they failed. It's like this, right? Superman is in a post-apocalyptic Gotham, set 100 years in the future, overtaken by man-bats. His powers are mostly gone because the Earth's air is so polluted that it blocks out the sunlight, making him considerably weaker strength-wise, on top of him being more than 100 years old already. But how they depict Superman in this world is the problem. We know that he is a beacon of hope, right? You know, the sun that illuminates the way for humanity, guided by an unshakable moral code, all of that. And this guy tries to do that 20% of the time, because throughout the story, everyone is trying to convince him to use guns, and he says, "I do not kill," which, you know, I respect. But for the rest of the comic, he's just this grumpy old man who looks like Santa Claus and is obsessed with Bruce Wayne, calling every bat creature Bruce, hating guns with a passion, and weirdly saying Gotham is the greatest civilization on Earth. Then he ends up going against everything he was saying prior, accepts military-grade weaponry from these kids, and kills a bunch of people with a huge gun without feeling bad about it. And then he kills himself with Batman's corpse because he couldn't heal himself anymore. Like, it's already bad enough that the main villains who made all of the Bat creatures were two Adolf Hitlers, but with this story, they tarnished his legacy. Like, they had him go against his own morals and buckle down to others' moral philosophies instead of paving the way himself, like he always does. Like, imagine the Logan movie, but by the end, he betrays Professor X and his daughter somehow, left her for dead, and then killed himself just because he couldn't heal anymore. That's this guy in a nutshell. And that's why he's the worst one-shot comic soups and the overall worst of all time. The only version that comes close is another one from a one-shot called Centaur Superman. And this is from a comic run mostly about an elderly Lois Lane and Lana Lang, you know, Superman's first love, becoming young again so they can live with Superman on the moon for the rest of their lives.
What?
Elderly Lois gets transformed into the new Wonder Woman because Diana is a Nazi now, who for some reason looks as black as me. But during their fight, seemingly for no reason, Circe turns Superman into a centaur and brainwashed him. And he becomes so toxic. In this form, he just gallivants around, you know, clopping around, you know, across the plains and stuff, blowing horns. He doesn't do anything but drink. He drinks more than Zorro, actually. And not only that, but he treats women terribly. Like, he's yanking this girl's hair, bro. I swear he's like Andrew Tate's final form. Like, he really does act like this toxic, masculine dude. And the only way he was able to snap out of this horse form was when Lana rode him on horseback to calm him down like you would like a normal horse. But then he ran into space, so she died. Because of course, she can't breathe into space. This shocked him out of the form. And then somehow she got revived and they all lived happily ever after. But these two are without a doubt the worst one-shot versions of this character. Wow, the new 52, and hey, I'm just gonna say it.
You know what? I'm about to say it.
Say it.
I do not like New 52 Superman. I never did. Between 2011 and 2016, DC launched the New 52, which reinvents almost everybody in the DC universe, including the main man, Superman. Which is cool, but this is where it gets weird, because Superman was made younger than Batman. 25 to 27 years old, while Bats was in his 30s, which threw off their usual balance, you know? Instead of them being equals, the scales tipped in Batman's favor, because he clearly had more power over Superman, often having the final say in Justice League decisions, and was positioned as both the strategist and the voice of reason. Meanwhile, Superman, instead of being the emotional core of the group, you know, morality, inspirational and all that, he became the unpredictable muscle, starting off as an aggressive vigilante kind of guy. This man was dangling people off of balconies. He was a vigilante, bro. He was like Homelander, but still was trying to do good, enforcing his justice on other people, intimidating criminals, forcing confessions. But he was untrustworthy for a while because of that, but over time he softened, he became a better hero and had a knack for bringing people together. But even then, the League never treated him as a leader. It got to the point where Superman felt replaceable. Like any other heavy hitter could take his place and the team would barely notice. And that's why, to me, this is one of the worst versions of Superman, because they stripped away what made him special. The worst animated show Superman, he doesn't really have a worse one. Like, all of these versions of Superman were just products of its time, though there are some that are better than others. So there's not really a bad animated Superman, but I would say it's Superman. People might get mad at me. It would be the Superfans one just because he's like, oh, I'm Superman, you're coming with me, and that's really it,
I know you're here, Luthor. Show yourself.
No.
That's it, Luthor. You're through spreading your evil.
Now it's time for the animated movie, and The Dark Knight Returns is the one that's here, bro. Or should I say Puppy Dog Superman? Because the wild part is, he's not even that bad. That's what makes it worse. He still has a good heart. Like, he cares for civilians. And there's even this really cool scene where he's near death and he starts absorbing the life energy from plants and nature to survive. I've never seen that in the Superman story until this movie came out. Like, it's really cool that he can do that, but man, he's out here wagging his tail for this weird prune-looking Bernie Sanders-looking dude who cares more about power than the people. Because you see, this Superman works for the government.
What about state alchemists being the military's attack dogs called into war to mow down the lives of people the state tells you are bad? Did your teacher mention that?
He follows orders without question. He goes to foreign countries, ends wars, and sometimes starts new ones like he does in the movie, which really isn't his fault, it's the president's. But either way it goes, because of his actions, it all leads to a nuclear missile being launched, one that nearly kills him and throws the world into chaos. He still saves people, but when the president tells him to bring in Batman dead or alive, he suits up with no hesitation. So instead of being the symbol of hope we know, they reduced him to a soldier. And no shade to soldiers, shout out to my grandpa and my uncle, But Superman is supposed to rise above politics. We've seen that multiple times. He even does that in the new Superman movie. But in this story, he doesn't. And me already not liking politics, I just don't like it. By the end of the movie, spoiler alert, Bruce dies. He doesn't really die though, and even though the president told him to bring in Batman dead or alive, and he figures out Batman is still alive, he lets Bruce live, which is cool. But let's be honest, if the president called him again to take Batman down, Superman would be right there. Now, for the live action portion, when it comes to TV Superman, there's not really a bad one to choose from. They're all really good in their own ways. Superboy and Smallville don't count because they're not even Supermen yet, and George Reeve in the 1950s is a legend. He's pretty much untouchable, so that really only leaves these two versions. Now I ask, who would you choose between these two? And do not let the quality of the show sway your decision, Look at the personality of the Superman.
There's a major flaw in creating a man with a metal body. Metal melts. No! No! Something wrong? Hi.
Hi, I like your costume.
Thank you. My mother made it for me. What's your name?
Amy Platt. Who are you?
I'm a friend.
Can you teach me how to fly?
Not fly, but once this lab is operational, walk. That's very possible.
Here you go, friend.
Thanks. Cool costume.
Thanks. My mom made it for me.
Asked what you stand for.
I'd like to think everything good and decent. Truth, justice.
The American way.
I think someone's just trying to get me to admit I was raised here.
My pick is him from Superman and Lois, which means him from Lois and Clark gets this spot, but only by process of elimination. He's not bad at all. That's something I can't say about the next one though, because now we're getting into the live action Superman. And brother, and I gotta, hey, Snyder Superman, he's just not for me, bro. He's the worst live action one. I still like Snyder's Superman, I do. He's cool, very cool. But he's also too stoic, you know, too troubled, too dark. He killed multiple people, both directly and indirectly. His father died in the stupidest way, and really both of his parents aren't the best because he traumatizes Clark about the dangers of using his powers in the first place, and she's teaching him lessons like this.
Be their hero, Clark. Or be none of it. You don't know this world a thing.
So now he just comes across as this detached alien that does whatever his other dad tells him to do, that also gets compared to Jesus. Like, I know I'm dumbing down all of this, but if I was in trouble or something and he comes to save me, I wouldn't know if I should be scared or not, you know? And that's how I knew he was the worst. Let me know what y'all think in the comments though. And lastly, we get to the video games. And of course, it's Superman 64. Because it promised to deliver the definitive Superman video game experience at the time, and it failed miserably. With terrible controls, non-existent characterizations, and next to no story, it just ruined childhoods. That's all it really did. Luckily, these next ones have the opposite effect because we're finally at the best versions of Superman. But let's start with the best mainline version this time around. So when it comes to this section, they all bring different things to the table. The Golden Age gave us Superman for the first time, debuting during the Great Depression as a liberator, a champion of the oppressed. He often fought for the poor and middle class by taking down any form of social injustice, like forcing the boss of this mining company to give its miners better working conditions, saying how every person should be treated fairly no matter their skin color and so on, you know? He was really doing his thing out there, but he's also known as the weakest version since the only powers he has is super strength. So he jumped around everywhere like the Hulk from 2003 and was given a cape to only simulate him flying. But while this age gave us Superboy, Smallville, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and even the Fortress of Solitude for the first time, the Silver Age, which came afterwards, gave us literally everything else we know about Superman today. So the fact that he gets his powers from the sun and how that works, all of the other powers he has today debuted in this age. Supergirl debuted here, the Phantom Zone, Crypto, Brainiac, Bizarro, the multiverse, you know, and even him officially joining the Justice League for the first time when the team was revamped to now include him and all of the other popular heroes at the time. The Bronze Age came after that, and it didn't necessarily introduce a lot, but rather it refined what was already there. So it made him more down to earth and gave him more complex character-driven stories. It was good for making what was already there better. But then a lot of it got retconned in the next phase, the modern age, which is the Superman I grew up with in the early 2000s. Now this one gave us Doomsday with the death of Superman, the reign of Superman, the best TV shows imaginable, like all of the animated series ones, you know, and Young Justice, while simultaneously taking all of the best parts of the previous versions and rolled it all into one. The New 52 came after that, but it was killed off because of fan backlash. Fans at the time, especially the core fans, didn't like the new direction they were taking with Superman during the New 52 phase. So he was then phased out and replaced by what we know now as the Rebirth Age, which essentially just revived modern era Supes and made him canon again, hence the name Rebirth. So I'm gonna give it to modern era Supes here because DC felt like this is the best one to bring back in order to make their fans happy. And that's because he's a good blend of every other previous version. As far as the best one-shot stories go, Bronze Age Superman is the one that wins here, which makes sense, right? Given this was an era of deeper characterization and more meaningful storylines, one of which being the man who has everything. I only know about this comic though because it was adapted into an episode of I think Justice League Unlimited, so like millions of other kids at the time, I was first told this story by the modern age Superman. And it starts with Batman and Wonder Woman showing up at the Fortress of Solitude to give Clark birthday gifts, joking about how he's impossible to shop for. But when he arrives, he finds the Black Mercy latched to his chest, draining his life force and trapping him in this dream of his deepest desire, which for him is a normal life on Krypton. In the dream, Superman has living parents, a great wife, and a peaceful home, and a kid. He's happy, but he slowly realizes that it's not real. And in one of the saddest scenes I've ever seen as a kid, or at least that I remember, he's forced to tell his son that you're not real, and he's leaving. And he's just bawling because he gave up the perfect life he always wanted because he'd rather live a real one than a beautiful lie. As a kid, this really stuck with me because it taught me that even though something looks good on the surface, that doesn't actually mean it's right for you and your own growth in life. So for me, Bronze Age Superman easily earns this spot as the best one-shot comic version of Superman. While the best Elseorld goes to the literal oil farming dude, Kingdom Come Superman, bro. You would have to be on Walter White's Booger Sugar if you don't think this version is the best version. Because first off, the art is phenomenal, but bro lost his faith in humanity here. The Joker killed Lois, but instead of going on demon time, he decided to let the legal system take him down. But this anti-hero named Magog or something comes out of nowhere and offs Joker in front of everyone in the courtroom. But instead of putting him in handcuffs, he's praised for it. Revered even, which caused Supes to completely lose faith in humanity and hung up the cape for the better part of a decade. But unbeknownst to him, so did the rest of the heroes at the time. So the Flash, Green Lantern, Power Girl, Batman, everyone from the older generation started fading out of the spotlight. Batman even became a bit of a tyrant in Gotham that ruled from the shadows, while the new generation was reckless, destructive, and careless with human life because Superman wasn't there to inspire him and show him the way. So a decade later, he decides to make a comeback, wearing a new costume that has a pretty cool meaning behind it.
Hey, why'd you add black to it?
Because, Lois, even in the darkest times, hope cuts through. Hope is the light that lifts us out of darkness.
Reforms the Justice League and tries to make things right again through trial and error, despite how much new heroes didn't listen or how the government doesn't trust him anymore. He prevailed by staying solid in a world that wants nothing to do with him, inspiring everybody in the process. This is such an easy pick. He's definitely the best Elseworld Superman. Moving on, we finally got the animated portion, and it's not even a contest. Nostalgia aside, the animated series Supes is the definitive Superman. Its portrayal of the modern era Supes is pretty perfect for the most part, and there hasn't been another animated version that can top it despite how cool these other ones are. Another easy pick. For the animated movie category, All-Star Superman is the best because it's based on one of the best comics of all time, which, as you all know, inspired the newest Superman movie the most. It perfectly encapsulates what Superman is all about, showing him continuously striving to make others' lives better, even though he's slowly dying himself, leaving behind a legacy that inspired billions in its wake. No other animated Superman movie compares to this, even though Superman vs. the Elite was really good. Speaking of movies though, now we're on the live action, and I'm gonna give it a tie here. I gotta give it a tie, don't kill me, because Reeves is the definitive Superman. Reeves is more charming. His voice and approachability just sounds and feels like Superman the most out of everybody else. But at the same time, you cannot count the 2025 one out, like his relatability, his power, how he doesn't really care about politics and only cares about saving lives. That's something you'd really see from the Golden Age Superman if you really think about it, because he really acted outside of the law back then. And this is just taking it on a grander scale, internationally, I'm not gonna lie, I do have some love for Superman Returns, and Henry Cavill's was just cool. He's definitely the coolest Superman for sure. But these two symbolize hope the most. And as for TV, Superman and Lois is the best hands down. He's got the fits, the demeanor, and it's cool seeing him deal with wearing all these hats, So him being a father, him being a coach, him being a husband, him being Superman, and everything that comes with that. It's really interesting seeing how he balances it all and the consequences that come with dealing with all that to begin with. Lois and Clark is close, but this one takes the cake. And lastly, we get to the video game section, and Injustice is the clear winner. Even though I really do not like his personality, there's a reason why he's successful, Everything he's done was pretty interesting.
I know you're afraid, for everybody. Ever since you lost Lois.
I used to be afraid. Afraid my powers would make people fear me. Afraid who I'd hurt if I wasn't careful every second of every day. I spent my whole life holding back. My fear cost me Lois. That's why I don't hold back anymore.
Anyone else?
And yeah, that's the video. I'ma end it here, but real quick, here's some versions I really wanted to include but couldn't. So like Absolute Superman, he's one of my favorite versions, but he didn't really fit in any category. So Superman Red Sun was close to being the best Elseworlds. Justice Lord Superman because he looks cool, Bizarro because he's cool, Eradicator because he's cool, yeah. But I didn't, it is what it is. I'm still recovering. Can you believe I got a whole freaking surgery, dude? It's insane. I'll tell you all about it one day. Anyways, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace out.